Imagine that you are in a night in a camp far away in the Arctic near the North Pole, and you feel the stars and the aurora borealis trying to get by. Then you get into, it's very cold, and although you are all well protected, you need to get into a teepee, into a tent, and then there is a fire there, and it's croaking and roasting, is so nice. And there are other people around the fire, and all of them want to listen to a story, and the story goes like that. Do you want to listen to it? There you go. This is a story about Thor and Loki, great journey to Utgard. What happens is that summer comes late to the north and it leaves early. But that first summer morning is so blue, you believe it always be blue. Then you feel so enthusiastic and your blood quickens and you really want to go out and do things. So Thor, the mighty Thor, the owner of the hammer, said to the other gods, you know what? I want to go out and to visit Utgard, the king of the fortress of the giant king. And there is no greater adventure than that. Loki, the trickster god, said, I would like to come to you because without my wits and my cunning, you would be mincemeat. Thor agreed, and then they start their way to Utgard. On the road, they meet a man, a very big man, and the man said, hey, where are you going, humans? No, we are not humans, said Thor. We are gods. All right, where are you going, gods? Well, we are going to visit the great king in Utgard. We know it will be a great pleasure for us to make their acquaintance, and then he will enjoy to meet us gods. That's very good. Well done. Well, but I think that you are very small. The giant king is very powerful, and he and their other giants will make a pulp of you. How you dare to say that? Yeah, well, you take care. Anyway, after many days and many nights, they arrived to the city of the giant king, to the kingdom of the giant king. And they get into this big palace, and there are giants around the table, but they don't seem to pay so much attention to Thor and Loki. And they're like, hello, we have arrived. What it is talking? Oh, it's we. We are here. We are the gods, Thor and Loki. Oh, that's fine. But what do you mean? We are very powerful gods, so we can do whatever feast. So the giant king said, right. If you are that powerful, what can you do that is so special? And Loki, who was very, very hungry after 2 or 3 days of going around, said, I can eat everything I am put in front. Oh, really? Said the giant king. All right. So do you think that you can challenge one of my knights for a competition? Oh, yes, I can do it, said Loki. And Loki is very cunning and naughty. And so he thought, I will kill two birds with one stone. I will be able to eat a lot, and at the same time, I can challenge this great king. Okay, right. Loki, said the king, come here and compete with Loki. The giant king spoke to his servants, and they brought a long table into the hall, completely covered with pieces of chopped meat, ribs, thighs, necks, legs, all sorts of food. Thor, who had not eaten a mouthful since some days ago, and having to look at the food without helping himself was almost more than he could bear. Then Loki and Loki sat down on chairs at the two ends of the table and began to eat. And they bit and chewed and swallowed, each edging his chair along opposite sides of the trencher as he did so. And finally, they met in the middle. They had both eaten so much. Loki was eating and eating and eating. But Loki was eating more, was eating even the table. Loki, the giant, had eaten all the bones and the table as well. Then all the giants in the hall shouted and waved. Fast, said the giant king to Loki. Very fast, Loki, but not fast enough. Right. What else you can do? Well, Loki said, well, I'm very fast. And yes, indeed, Loki was famous for being so fast. All right. So can you compete with one of my younger almost children? Oh, with the children I can beat him. Right, you try. And yes, Loki run and run and run and run and run. But he could not catch that Hughie. So he was like, what's going on? In the meanwhile, Thor was looking at the scene and said, yeah, well, Loki's not really that good, but I am the mighty Thor. I can do whatever you want. All right, okay, so what would you like to do? Oh, well, I can do drinking, said Thor. Drinking. I'll drink against anyone. I thought as much, replied the Giant King. And at once he summoned his cupbearer and asked him to fill the great drinking horn. Okay, Thor, this is what we drink from, the Giant King said as the cupbearer carefully placed the brimming horn between Thor's hands. The best drinkers here can drink it in one draught. Some of us need to. But Thor frowned. The horn did seem a bit on the long side, but he was extremely thirsty. So he said, yeah, I can drink and I can beat this Giant King in his challenges. Well, anyway, Thor bent to the horn and he raised and began to drink. Not sips of mouthful, but huge noisy gulps. Boom, 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 boom. He was drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking, but the horn was always full of liquid. Wow! He drank a lot, but he didn't manage to finish the liquid in the horn. So the king said, well, you did very well, Thor. That is amazing. Yeah. But, you didn't drink it all. So he was very angry, Thor, because he has never been defeated. Then he said, well, okay, I can do so many other things. Okay, like what? Oh, I am very strong. I can lift anything. I can move anything. All right, said the Giant King and said, well, you might not think that it's difficult, but many of my young lads here try to lift my cat. Your cat? Yes, try to lift it. And yes, a grey cat sprang down from a ledge in the wall above their heads. He was large, certainly, like all the cats and dogs in Utgard, but not all that much larger than a sheep of a goat. So Thor shrugged, and he tried to lift the cat. But the cat was like elastic, and he was expanding and expanding and expanding, and he was arched his back further, and he tried really to move him, but impossible. So the only thing that he could do was to lift one front paw. The Giant King groaned. Ha ha ha! Well, he's rather a large cat, while Thor is a good deal smaller than the youngest lad here, no much larger than a dwarf. Of course, Thor got berserk. Dwarfs? How you dare that? I can challenge any of your warriors and I will beat him. Well, you haven't really lived to your promises, said the Giant King. But I'm going to give you the chance to beat my old foster mother. She's old, but I must warn you, she look old, but I've seen her throw men and giants who look a good deal stronger than you. Then the giant king opened his lungs and roared, and before long, an old woman hobbled in, leaning heavily on her stick. Thor was too angry to stand on ceremony, but when he launched himself at the old woman, she didn't take a single step backwards, and he could hear the giants laughing all around him. Even worse, he was sure he could hear Loki's spiteful laugh. The thunder god seized the old woman's skinny shoulders and tried to drive her down, but the more pressure he exerted, the firmer she stood. She squinted at Thor and grabbed his left arm. Thor threw her off, but then she longed for her left hand and only let go when Thor slammed his right shoulder against her. It was a difficult moment for Thor because the old lady had him subdued. Then he said, "You know what?" The giant king told Thor, "There is no point in my asking to wrestle with anyone else, not if you can even throw my poor old woman. Anyhow, it's getting late." Thor felt angry and humiliated and exhausted. He wanted nothing more than turn his back on Utgard and begin the long journey back to Asgard. But then, instead of taunting them or laughing further, the giant said, "Come on, people, eat and be merry with us, and go to sleep because tomorrow will be another day." So they woke up next morning. Thor and his companions were eager to set off for home. But first the giant king plied them with food and drink and ensured that his servants filled Thor's sack as well. Well, and then Thor and Loki were a bit surprised. They were not expecting so much generosity, but anyway, it was a nice gesture. And the giant king said to them, "You know what? I'm going to take you to the border." And at the border said, "Oh, guys, I knew you were coming, and I must confide you a secret. It was me, the big man that you met on the road, and it was me who had the a premonition before you arrived to get prepared. So I sort of tricked you." "What do you mean you trick us?" "Yes, Loki. You were trying to eat a lot?" "Yes, but I made you compete with Loki, which is wildfire, and wildfire is everything, including the table. So you see, the trickster god is being tricked by myself." "Oh, right. What about the horn and the drinking from the horn?" said Thor. "Well, Thor, that horn was filled with the oceans. And if you go around, you'll see that the oceans are a great deal lower than when you started this trip. But they are inexhaustible. You cannot drink them all." Thor was furious. "But what about the cat?" "Oh, the cat, yeah. Well, the cat is the Midgard serpent, Loki's son, lying at the bottom of the ocean, encircling Midgard. You hauled him right out of the water and you held him high, but not far from the sky." "But what about the wrestling?" said Thor. "Well, that's the worst, Thor. This old lady is my foster mother, Ellie, and she is old age. There's never been anyone in the world, and never will be, who's not tripped up by old age. You cannot do anything about old age. But you were able to try to subdue her. You did well, but old age is much more powerful." Thor and Loki were furious, and before they could reply, the giant king said, "Okay, bye." And the gods were left there with this lesson about going out and meeting different challenges. And that's the story, my friend.